Where's our intro music? That's the best part.
There we go. This one might spice it up right away.
Well, we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Everything Expedition Live. I'm Tiffany Dent, travel advisor, explorer, and CEO of Tiffany Dent Dream Vacations. So for those of you joining for the first time, this series is your front row seat to the most fascinating corners of the world and a rare opportunity to hear directly from the visionaries, Kayla, shaping the future of expedition travel. So we've already had some incredible conversations in this series, and I'm thrilled to keep this momentum going and really provide the insights that demystify expedition travel and connect you with the people that are making this happen. So Everything Expedition Live brings you insider access that most travelers really don't even know exist. And this is anywhere from Antarctica to the Amazon, to the Arctic, to the Kimberleys. So each of these episodes features industry leaders who are really redefining what it means to explore. So my goal remains the same, that you'll walk away informed and most importantly, connected to our growing community of expedition enthusiasts. So come for the content, stay for the community, and whether you are expedition curious or you're planning your next adventure, you're in the right place. So I'm really glad you're here. And today I am super excited to introduce our next guest, my friend and colleague in the travel industry, Kayla Corbett from Scenic Group. Yay! Welcome,
Hey,
Kayla.
thanks for having me, Tiffany.
Yes. So let me tell you a little bit about how great Kayla is, because she probably wouldn't say this about herself, but a little bit of her background is her career began in the cruise industry about 11 years ago as a crew member on board 7 large cruise ships sailing across the globe. So in 2016, she traded her sea legs for land and built her expertise in business development and corporate sales for 2 emerging cruise lines. And by 2020, actually, she was working in key and national accounts with the major emerging line where she helped guide the industry's largest travel companies through the challenges of the global pandemic. We all remember that. And in 2023, she joined the Scenic Group and now leads the key and national accounts department for Scenic and Emerald Cruises and Tours. So as a graduate of James Madison University, Kayla has traveled to, get ready for this number, folks, 61 countries. I always thought my number was high, and then like I just meet people like you and I'm like, I got nothing on the 61. And 5 continents, and brings with her not only her passion for luxury expedition travel, but also a deep commitment to sustainability and marine health. And what I really love about Kayla's background is that she bridges firsthand onboard experience with strategic leadership on the business side, all while really staying rooted in her passion for travel and protecting the places we explore. So I'm super excited to dive in and discover how Scenic and Emerald are redefining what it means to explore the world in style and with purpose. So welcome, Kayla.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm so happy to be here. It's always good to talk about expedition. It's the heartbeat, and I think cruising for me after all these years. And I think there's just so much fun to talk about. And this season has been absolutely incredible in the Arctic, and we're getting ready for Antarctica. So lots of good things ahead.
I cannot wait to dive into this because I feel like the Scenic Group is obviously very unique and what your brand offers, right? It is so versatile. It ticks almost every box of the kind of travel that is available, from sort of, I wouldn't call it mainstream, right? There's definitely options all the way to sort of the extremes and places that few people get to go to, all while you have this super elevated luxury guest experience. So I think that is amazing. And so really the first question is, can you talk a little bit about that brand and, the versatility of it and kind of the expansion into expedition?
Sure. Yeah. So Scenic is over 30 years old in general. We were born and raised in Australia and actually began as Australian bus tours to fabulous destinations across the globe, and later expanded into the river cruising segment a little over 10 years ago, and now have a fleet of 13 lovely luxury river ships across Southeast Asia and Europe. And in 2019, we broke ground and were the world's first luxury discovery yachts. And would now have a fleet of 2, and maybe there's some good news coming soon about some other emerging vessels in our fleet. But we're really excited about the ocean expansion because it's just really allowed our portfolio to be so well-rounded. We still do the land tours from anywhere from Egypt and the Nile to the Rocky Mountains to Alaska, Australia, you name it. There's still luxury land products. We do a full river season, and that's expanding now even into the chilly months to be a little bit off peak season if you want to go ahead of time. And then we also have our full calendar year of sailing to all 7 continents on the ocean. So it's really an exciting product. Nothing gets stale here.
Then that's so amazing too, because, when we talk about expedition, my definition of it, like, yes, you have your traditional Antarctica, the Arctic, and we're going to talk about that. But really, expedition is getting out there and really immersing yourself in the culture and in the destination. And I think, Scenic's brand obviously does that across everything you just named. So when we think about expedition travel, more probably in the classic sense, as you know, it is like the fastest growing segment of travel.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? And why do you think people are so interested in it?
Well, I think, it's, first of all, I think just touching on the global pandemic earlier, and we don't ever want to go back to those times. It was like a very crazy memory in our minds. We passed it, we lived through it, made us stronger as an industry. But I think it definitely awakened the sense of time is not unlimited. And I'm grateful for my health today. I want to make the most of it. This is something that I've wanted to do forever. And I think the power of social media has shown people, whoa, I'm seeing friends, colleagues, peers go out and travel. And I want to have that same experience. It's always been my dream to see a polar bear in the wild. And, with ever-changing environmental kind of, fluctuations that happen, it's definitely something that people are saying, I want to get out there and do this while I can. And we're seeing, cruising has been such a popular mode of travel, and it continues to be. And it's still interesting to me that only like I think the statistic is less than 25% of Americans have taken a cruise. And when you think about the millions of people that have gone and how big these ships are getting now, it's really kind of a mind-blowing statistic. And then we look at expedition, it's even less, but I think it's people who have been out there and have done maybe exotic safaris, or they've done a cruise. They're looking for what's next. And this is a mode that is fresh and new and exciting, and takes them on a whole different travel journey to a totally different place. And I think really stands out in their mind. And as well as I from having cruise and expedition, it's unlike anything else. And and once you take that first leap, whether you're going to the Galapagos, the Arctic, Antarctica, the Kimberleys, wherever it may be, you come back with a thirst and hunger for more. And I think that that's helping the expansion too, that it's not just a one and done experience. Oh, I've done the Arctic, I can, say that I've done expedition. There's so much more to do. And we're constantly seeking new destinations and ways to get our travelers to unique places in an expedition mode.
Well, and to the point you just made earlier with the statistic around, out of the entire population, the percent of people who have cruised, I fell into that. And I have been to 20 plus countries, and I've lived in several countries. So again, before joining the travel industry, I considered myself a pretty well-traveled person. And I had never done a cruise. And, I've done one since, of course, but I've also done more on the riverside and expedition. And I really, like you said, that type of travel, it's like anything else. It's like nothing else you've ever experienced, right? And the immersion in just what you are seeing and doing, it is completely different. And so, I think having these conversations, I use the word demystify, but I think people are unaware of, there's a lot of misconceptions, right? And that's kind of leads into sort of the next question, right? It's like, I think, people think they're roughing it. There's lots of different levels of ways you can travel. Obviously, Scenic Group brings that to a whole elevated level.
Yes.
And so I think, what's important is you can see these places, and not only can you have your creature comforts, right? But you can really like live the life on aboard these vessels. And that would be my question is, what misconceptions about expedition, are out there, or would we like, you kind of like to disprove or wish more people knew about?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind that are constant questions. So we'll tackle the obvious, since I have an Arctic background here, and say for the people that are like, I don't like the cold. Okay.
Yes.
We are many times in expedition travel, you are traveling to cold places, but we give you a packing list ahead of time. You have a lovely luxury parka that's your size, that's yours to keep, that's in your room upon entry. So if you're prepared, and you would be, of course, to travel out there, you're going to be comfortable. There was many times when I was in Antarctica that I was like unzipping my jacket because we're hiking, the sun is shining, it's in the 30s, there's no wind, and it's like, wow, it's just a beautiful day to be outside, and I've got the base layers on, I'm good. But I think, I tell a funny story too, because interestingly enough, my goal in life is to get everybody who has a sense of adventure out on an expedition, because I just think
I love that.
such an emotional reaction. And I love hearing people's stories when they come back. And my own mother was in this group, actually, and I convinced her last year to go to Greenland on a 14-night expedition sailing on Scenic Eclipse. And this woman absolutely detests cold water. That was the bane of her existence. We grew up in Connecticut. She wouldn't go in the beach ever. Cold water was like her arch nemesis. And I told her before going, you have to do the polar plunge. It's such a unique experience. Just when else are you going to have the opportunity to do it? If you're out there, Mom, you're healthy, like just go do it. It's invigorating. I can tell you from personal experience, you're going to survive it and thrive and have like this core memory for life. Well, I'm pleased to say that this woman, who again absolutely hates the cold and cold water even more, polar plunged twice because she was having so much fun. So
really?
Any mystifying kind of preconceptions and throwing that out the window, because expedition changes you. And I think that's one facet that I always like to tell people. Just don't go in with any preconceived ideas about what you think it's going to be, because it's going to absolutely blow your mind. The second part is that all expedition travel is the same. It's all rough and tumble. It's all like very super active, to the point where, you may question, hey, I'm not a marathoner, I'm not a pro hiker, am I going to be able to do this? And the answer is yes. We have different paths for everybody, depending on what their mobility is. Obviously, you will need to get in and out of a Zodiac to have the full experience. And some of the hikes are a little bit more aggressive than others, but there's always different avenues. We do cater to, of course, active audiences with kayaks, paddle boards, all of that. But if you're a person that just loves to get in the Zodiac and go for a Zodiac safari to see what's out and about with some of the expedition crew members, we can perfectly deliver that experience. But more importantly, from the active to non-active, is the general experience. Is it luxury? And I love to highlight Scenic here, because we truly deliver an ultra luxury experience on board, whether you're on a traditional yacht sailing in the Mediterranean, or if you're in the Ross Sea in Antarctica for 21 days. Everything is included. You are not sacrificing on anything. If anything, you're adding to your experience with a super high staff to crew ratio. So in our expedition zones, it's a 1-to-1 guest staff ratio, 200 guests, 200 crew. Butler service for everybody. Everything is included. Just the quality of the food, that small ship experience that is exceptionally comfortable and luxury while you're in these really exotic destinations doing expedition experiences ashore.
Which I think, and I know you've got some images that you'll pull up where you can actually see what some of this looks like, because I think, to your point, people have a image in their mind of what some of this looks like, right? And I think, and there's a product and a company for everyone. So, some of these places, right, most of them are just complete bucket list items for people. And so, not only are they going to go, but if you're going to go, right, you might as well go and go big and be so comfortable. And I know we're going to get to it, because you guys also offer very unique experiences on board that, quite frankly, maybe no one else does, or very few in the industry do. And
Yes.
so which are some fun toys and experiences on board, which I know we're going to get to, but that I think also sets things apart, right? Because it offers you a different way to see these places. In addition to, you're already going to see them in a different way. You guys just raise that up. But I wanted to hit on something before we kind of move on to some of the guest experience. You hit on it a little bit. Who is the expedition traveler today, right? Because, you mentioned, you guys can really cater all of the experiences essentially to any age group, but, who do you primarily see? And whether it's on expedition or river, or yacht, and maybe that is completely different kinds of groups of people, age groups, or interests. But, generally, who do you see as someone who is taking an expedition trip?
Right. So that's a great question, Tiffany. And I think with us, it is so multifaceted. And I have this slide up here just to show you the diversity in the voyage experiences that people can have just on Scenic Eclipse alone, because this is a yacht with a maximum capacity of 228 guests. And yet you can have a totally different experience based on the destination that you're in, whether we're talking today about expedition voyages in a high fashion, but we have our discovery voyages, which are doing a blend of traditional cruise voyages and expedition. And then we have, the regions all over the rest of the world, including Asia, the Americas, Mediterranean, where people may have been interested or intrigued in taking a smaller ship experience or going on a luxury discovery yacht. Maybe they did a 7-night Mediterranean sailing to start, and they said, I really like this. So maybe next time I'm going to look at something more exotic or more expedition driven with, the Arctic or Australia, New Zealand, and the Kimberleys, et cetera. We tend to find, as from expedition clients overall, I will say that when I was in Antarctica, I was pleasantly surprised because the age range on the 14-night sailing that I was personally on beyond the Antarctic Circle had a guest range of 15 to 92. So it really is not this, I think oftentimes people think of just recent retirees, which is a big portion of our group, of course, because people are still active. They're now, have removed the barrier of getting, appropriate time off of work, et cetera. They have a good disposable income to be able to lean into a luxury expedition experience. But it's not just that. I ran into many couples that were in their 40s that had never thought of a cruise before, but Antarctica was on the bucket list. When they were looking at all the different options, they really felt like Scenic delivered the experience that they were going to be looking for the most in the expedition zones, and that's where they found us. We also find, even just blending our land and river products, that the folks that have taken safaris, people that have interest in doing backpacking journeys through India and are really culturally driven or nature driven, speak to the expedition experience. We have a future cruise program on board all of our ships, whether it's river or ocean. And, I found too, when I was just kind of buzzing by the future cruise desk to just see what people were interested in for their next vacation. And many people who were in Antarctica were saying, I'm actually interested in Southeast Asia and doing the Mekong River. So, it really just depends on where you have or haven't been. And people tend to think like, okay, expedition people just love cold weather and snow and ice. And that's not true. We have expedition and discovery voyages now in the Kimberleys, which is much warmer region, and that's a totally different experience. So it really just depends on where people have been and where what's important to them, where they're trying to go.
And
nature component.
Oh, you go. Yeah, well, and you hit on a couple things. One is, I think is just not known. The fact that you can combine these different types of travel, right? Because
Absolutely.
You would never think of that. And yes, that obviously is more time away. So if you've got the means to have that amount of time away, but when you think about combining those different travel styles, you really think about, like you said, the range of people. So whether, again, it's a multi-generational family where you do have these older teenagers and your parents and potentially, grandma and grandpa, you can all go on these trips and enjoy it. And I think that's very unique, right? And have the different levels of experience, whether then you're on river and then you're on ocean or you're on land. So you're experiencing all of that. But the other thing I wanted to mention, because I am now seeing a pattern too in the conversations that I'm having. You and I have traveled together on, with a couple of different events. And what I am seeing, we're probably very similar in age. I am seeing my age group, right? And I'm like, I love this way of travel. I can't be the only one, right? Like I can't be the only one in this sort of demographic that is maybe like, I love a beach and I love a yacht, right? But like, I want to learn something. I want to explore. Doesn't mean I want to go see every castle, right? Because there's so many other things that you can do on these expeditions. You can be as active as you want. A lot of people our age are, right? They're very active. So, everything is sort of tailored to that group and to that age. But I think that's one thing people don't think about it, that they just think, okay, it's for this age group, this slow thing, or if it's expedition, it's this extreme, right? And I think there is this interesting middle ground and even sort of middle age group that is really getting into this type of travel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, I'm a old millennial, and it's interesting because like, millennials, which were so segmented for so long, and Gen Xers as well too, where, Gen X and millennial. And the funny thing is, many of us are at the height of our careers or still continuing to grow. Income isn't really not an issue. We've got the time off, and it's really about like, okay, if I'm going to unplug from work, where do I want to go that is different and going to speak to me and give me something that I can't get anywhere else? Or I'm going to come home with stories. And expedition certainly delivers. And I love opening those conversations, just even meeting people around and about, because everyone wants to hear about it. Like, oh, you polar plunge. What was it like? Oh, what was Antarctica like? And I just love telling people the stories, because you can always see this kind of light bulb go off in their eyes of like, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. Or, oh, yeah. And it's, it's like I said, time is not unlimited. We're all grateful for the days that we have. And I think when people are trying to plan their next adventure, putting the things on the list that really matter to them are starting to come out more and more, and really prioritizing that.
I could not agree more. And, I think you sort of were kind of segmenting into this nicely when we are thinking about, okay, so let's pick a place. And this image is fantastic because I want to be in that hot tub right now. Right. So, you go to so many incredible places. So, let's walk through, what does that guest experience look like, right? I'm a traveler on Scenic, whether it's Eclipse, whether it's a river, whether it's a yacht. Let's just take this, for example, right? What does that guest experience look like? What is the interaction with your expedition team? Who's on your expedition team? Let's give us a little flavor of that.
Sure. So I think that's a great place to start, Tiffany, too, because these are the individuals that make the experience what it is. And we have 20 Discovery team members on every single expedition voyage. Like I said, and we bring that guest capacity down to 200 from 228, which our yacht is at max capacity. So that way we can deliver an exceptional shoreside experience in these remarkable destinations. So these folks are everyone from biologists, ornithologists, cetaceanologists, glaciologists, historians, general experts on the region. And they are phenomenal because, there's nothing better than, we have an open bridge policy. You go up on the bridge and you're there with the whale expert, and she's showing you what spouts to look for and identifying, different whales, and telling you more about, different populations and experiences that she's had. And then you go ashore and you've got the penguin experts, the ornithologists, and there's a couple on board because we see so many penguins in Antarctica. And then you could be at, an old whaling station, and now you're going to have the stories of Shackleton's journey and what the Norwegian whaling stations used to be like back in the day. And you really feel like you come out with such a well-rounded experience and knowledge of these different destinations. And what I love is they feel like family. They're out there dining with our guests. You feel very safe. We've never had any Zodiac incidences or any safety issues with Scenic, which I am extremely proud to say, because some of these destinations are quite remote, and I think people always want to know that safety is paramount, and our team has delivered phenomenally. Jason Flesher, who leads our expedition team, he hires and trains and keeps everybody on course. He's been to Antarctica over 100 times, and they really know the destinations, and he's very discerning with who makes the team, because it is such an important facet of the experience. So those are the experts, but I mean, we have some other worldly experiences too, which I know we're teasing, and I have to say this for Scenic because we are the only operator in Antarctica to offer 2 helicopters and a submersible experience. And this is the only experience that is an added charge on Scenic, just for fueling and permitting, guidelines, et cetera. But it truly is another it's another dimension of seeing these destinations. I personally had the opportunity to do the helicopter in Antarctica for about a 45-minute journey, and it was just exceptional. We're going over mountains. You're seeing the ice from above, and those crystal clear blue colors and hues that you're seeing is just, you had to be there. And same thing with people that want to check off the submersible experience and bring back photos from home of saying what they've seen on their travels and journeys. But it really is a special way to go. And again, just another layer of what our experience is like. But beyond that, and in reference to our earlier kind of discussion about an ultra luxury expedition experience, Scenic really is. So when I said everything is included with the asterisks of the helicopter and the submersible, it truly is. When you arrive to the yacht, and we really can't say ship because I think, it's funny. I was recently on a ship with 900 people for an event, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really big because I'm so 200 guests and just waltzing up to the gangway, and you leave your bags right there, and they take them to your suite, and your butler greets you as soon as you come in. They take you to reception to just do your check-in. Super simple, immediately escort you to your suite. And, from there, the yacht is yours. All of your beverages are included. It's premium beverages. All of your gratuities, both ship and shore, for all staff included. Unlimited Wi-Fi with no device limit, and we do use Starlink. I tested it in Antarctica and was Zooming and Teamsing.
So you still could work. You worked from Antarctica, is what you're saying?
I did. I mean, a couple times, not
right.
And it worked, which is great. So if you want to bring iPads, phones, laptops, there's no device limit. You can do that as much as you like. All of our excursions. So whether you're on an expedition voyage or if you're in the Med, every single tour that you're going to do with Scenic is always covered, and as are the gratuities for the shoreside staff if it's a tour operator that's providing that. All of our experiences relating to our kayaks and paddle boards included. There are many other operators that will charge up to $200 per person to do it once. Scenic, you can do it unlimited. We like to make sure that everybody who wants to do it has an opportunity to do so, but many times people do it several times throughout the course of their voyage and really get an active experience if they're seeking that. We have a thermal suite that's included with saunas, steam rooms, plunge pools, salt therapy lounges. That's covered. All of your dining. I mean, it's just a great experience. And then the transfers as well. When you need to return to the airport, we'll take you back home so you can get, to the airport in time.
So one thing I'm personally curious about, because I've done kayaking on an expedition in warm water, and you see like stand-up paddle boards and stuff. And you mentioned because you think you're going to fall out, right? You think you're going to go into that icy water, but the team really guides you, right? And how to do this correctly, because you just see, and then you see, I've seen images too where people are kayaking and then here's a whale, right? And if a whale surfaces, like, am I going under? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah. So, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm going to see if I have a couple of visuals of it, just as we're talking about that experience, because it's just, it's true. I did it in Antarctica and I had a similar fear with just, what it was going to look like.
Yes.
And I had just polar plunged like 2 days ago, and I knew the water temperatures, and you think, okay, well, that you're going to survive if you fall in, but goodness, we're in a full like wetsuit here, a dry suit is what they call it. And I was really nervous, and I don't know why to do it, but the expedition guide, Spencer, who's originally from Minnesota and is very calm and cool and collected about guiding people on how to stand up and, just paddle along, was so awesome. And, I'm proud to say I did not fall in. I saw some other folks that were more tenured and they actually fell in, and they said, I didn't even feel the water temperature. This dry suit really works and it's great. But yeah, you have some really up close and personal encounters with wildlife. And obviously the guides will, if the whales are coming in really close, we try to get out of the way and never ever stress out wildlife by approaching them. It's always if they approach us and making sure that guests get to a safe zone. But I remember one day in Peterman Island, watching the kayakers and the paddle boarders out there as I was standing on the peak of the hill, just overlooking the whole scene. And there was whales singing down below, and I could hear the humpback whales singing their songs from the peak of the point that I was standing on, which was just—
Did you just cry? I would have cried.
It was so magnificent. I had never heard a whale song just reverberate off of the mountains and just feel so present and alive within nature. And then I was looking down and I was like, oh, wow, there's the paddle boarders are down there. And I can only imagine how vivid the sound is and the experience of being up close and personal right there. And, it really is, we're so blessed to have the opportunity to see this world in this way. And it's such a privilege.
Well, and I just have to say, this is why I love these conversations, because again, being in the industry, that actually has been a question I've had on the stand-up paddle boards and falling in and what that's like. And I've never asked it to anyone. And also here, again, you've been to 60 plus, like you travel, and you were nervous, right? But yet, and so I think that's generally maybe the questions people have or how people are feeling, but yet, you are at ease. They fell in, they obviously got right back out. So you're not like, you're not weighted down by this thing. You're able to get in and get out. And I think those are some of the things that, people are curious about. And obviously you don't have to do that experience, but if you want to, you can do it knowing that, we're safe, we're comfortable. I've got a whole team here that's going to keep me safe while I'm doing this experience.
Yes. They know what they're doing. And like I said, we've never had any safety issues at all. So I'm extremely proud of that. The guides and the experts are true experts, and we keep our guests very safe so that they have, a totally up close and personal experience, but never, put them in a position to be jeopardized or questionable.
Yes. Well, you've kind of touched on it a couple of times, and I know we're all in cold weather here, and I want to talk about a couple of different places. So the Kimberleys, right? Like that has become so popular, and I think a lot of people are not really sure. Like, I think it's in Australia. Like, where is it? Like, what does that even look like? Because I think it's a new destination for expedition. And, if you've been to Australia, I lived in Australia actually. And so I'm very familiar with everything that has to offer on the East Coast, right? But it's very different than the Kimberleys and the expedition. Can you kind of talk about that as a destination, an emerging destination, why it's becoming so popular?
Yeah. So, it's funny because we started our inaugural season in the Kimberleys in 2023 and 24. Actually, no, yeah, at 23 to 24 and 25, we had just a few sailings this year. We're not going to be repeating it in 26, but in 27 and 28, I believe we are. So look ahead, contact Tiffany, keep you up to date on those announcements. But it is truly an awesome destination. I actually was just watching some fellow partners' journeys there this summer, and it's Northwest Australia. So this is really visiting reefs, Aboriginal histories, different islands that have very unique wildlife, including crocodiles. A lot of people don't know that crocodiles are a thing in the Kimberleys. And they show you all sorts of different caves that you can only access. Like some of these caves, there's no phones allowed. You can't take pictures. You just have to be there to lay down and look up and experience the drawings from thousands of years ago. And I really, when one of our guests was telling me about that, it kind of struck with me because especially in this world of social media where everybody can feel like they can snap a picture of anything or a video and they've been there. But like when you go back and ask them, like, what did it look like? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't know because they were so focused on getting the picture or the video. And I love this idea that you just had to be there. I have no evidence. It lives in my mind bank of memories. And I'll always remember, doing some of these things where technology was not included, it just had to have that in-person experience. So,
and I think, you're right. I feel like, with any travel, right? Like you want to snap your photos, you want to remember, obviously, if you see incredible sights, you want to get that. But I will say, I feel like on expedition, whether it's because you're so active or you're so immersed in where you are, I did find myself or not wanting my phone to get wet. Who knows? I found myself not behind the camera as much, right? And just really being present. And I think that is very unique to this style of travel.
Yes. And we do have videographers too. So I feel like saying to people, because this is often a question of like, am I going to get the shots? You are. And also we have photographers and videographers on our expedition sailings to get the pictures of you in the wild. As they're in the Kimberleys, they'll take you under some waterfalls and dip the Zodiac in. So you kind of get soaked under this magnificent waterfall if you want to. And they have videos of that. And polar plunging, of course, is a thing. And, just out and about as you're, experiencing the wild. we have a team member that's dedicated to just capturing those moments for guests. And we put it together in a comprehensive video at the end that everybody sent the link to. And you have that as, you know, a souvenir. We don't charge anything for it. It's just simply part of our offering. And I think that to me also took a little bit of the pressure out of trying to get the perfect shot.
Yes.
Will say for anybody who, you know, is going on expedition and really wants to plan in advance, the iPhone situation is not going to be your best bet. Like if you can make an investment in advance to purchase a high quality or high res camera, I highly recommend, because the wildlife, you know, and the elements, there's a lot of movement and you want to focus in. And I've noticed, you know, looking back on my expedition pictures in comparison to that of those that had real cameras, there was a very visible difference. So if you're going to make the investment in the travel, I would also say invest in a really great camera if you can too, just to capture those moments. But
as a pro tip from Kayla, our insider tip right there.
You live and you learn.
Yes. Okay. So I want to shift gears a little bit to what I think is also just a fabulous way to travel that you guys offer, which is your yacht experience.
Yes.
And I think this is such a great combination of, you know, it's like the middle, right? You've got your ocean, your expedition, you've got your river. And I think what is unique, especially to me, is maybe you have your people who have done a lot of ocean cruising in the Caribbean, right? And oftentimes those itineraries are very similar. The ports are similar. Like you said, you're with kind of 900 of your BFFs and your besties there. That's right. And the yacht experience is so different from what happens on board to the amenities, but I think to where you go, right? Because what I have noticed on a lot of your itineraries, the ports are very different. And I think the places you're going to go are very different, which means the experiences and the excursions you have are very different, which lends itself to me to, again, this everything expedition where it's all about immersion. So you seem to skip the very tourist spots in a lot of ways, and you get into these places that, again, very few people go. Even if it's in, you know, the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, you're doing it very different. And I think, you know, if people have done, again, a traditional ocean cruise or a river, and it's like, you know, again, what's next in addition to everything I just mentioned, which would be awesome, like, I want to go on a yacht. So I want to dig into that just a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I've seen a recent post from you about one of your newest yacht experiences and itineraries that I think is to die for, which I'm hoping you're going to touch on a little bit.
Yeah, so we have, and you know, I should say too, so Scenic Group is actually two different brands. So in the beginning of this video or a segment, we were talking about just the scenic offering, which is the land tours, the luxury discovery yachts, which is Scenic Eclipse and Scenic Eclipse 2, and then our Scenic River ships. We do have a sister brand called Emerald Cruises, which is an upper premium river experience. So we say a nicely included luxury. We are now beginning with land tours on the Emerald side, which is also exciting, and more details to come on that. And then we have our Fun in the Sun yachts. So we were talking about Scenic being up to 228 guests in total capacity, 200 in the polar regions. The Emerald yachts, which only go to warm weather destinations, so the Mediterranean, the Adriatic, the Aegean, Seychelles is coming soon, and the Caribbean, but not the same old Caribbean is what I say. And those have a max capacity right now of just 100 guests, 50 cabins. We have a new yacht coming out this upcoming spring that will be 128 guests, 64 suites. So very small and intimate, different experience overall. But yes, there's a way to travel on yachts that is definitely out there. And I think people just need to know about them. Those yachts are brand new, built in 2022, 2023. So whether you're looking for warm weather, fun in the sun experiences, or you want to go all 7 continents, you have a mode of yacht transportation with Scenic or Emerald Cruises.
And can you talk a little bit about, you know, just on that side from the guest experience? Because from the images, what I have seen, which again, I think is unique, is sort of like these water toys or like platforms off the back where I think I saw a trampoline or I saw like a slide. I mean, these are like an adult playground, right? That's what I would think of it.
They are. So yeah, I actually can get a different deck here for that entirely. But we have, we found that people, when they go on a yacht, they also want to have the yacht experience and feel, you know, the joys of being closer to the water and having that intimate experience. We say that have the below deck experience that everybody sees on TV. That's like, oh, that'd be so fun. And really, when you're on the Emerald yachts and the Scenic yachts, you really feel like it's your own private yacht. I mean, we have now marina platforms. So on Scenic, the marina platform folds out the aft, and that's where we do our polar plunging and also Zodiac launching. They've also done some barramundi fishing out in the Kimberleys. You know, just they've used that as an area to kind of just play around and use the kayaks and the paddle boards. And on the Emerald side, we have the same thing. It extends out, and we have a water trampoline that people can use, and you know, kids and guests and adults alike definitely use that. We have sea bobs, which are like little underwater scooters that you can use and play around with. Of course, the kayaks, the paddle boards. Sometimes people just want to float out in the water and just be kind of enjoying the gorgeous turquoise water that they're surrounded by in Croatia or Greece. And then we also have now included a new feature, which is this slide that comes down the back. And we're finding that a lot of the adults really love that. But
yeah,
you know, why not? You know, that's the whole thing about, you're not on a big ship. This is your vacation, your experience to make it what you want. Tours are great and fun, and you're in some amazing destinations to do so. But when you want to just relax and be present with the lovely surroundings of the ocean or the seas that you're in, like, you have that opportunity, and it's very cool.
And I think what you're hitting on too is, you know, and this is for anyone, but I think too, you do have a lot of well-traveled people that have done a lot, that have seen a lot. And, you know, you're just highlighting, I think, you know, everyone continues to evolve. You know, the Scenic Group obviously is, you know, one on the forefront of that, where it's kind of like, what else are people looking for? What's next? What's new? And even if they've been to that general region, right? Like you just said, it's not the same old Caribbean. And so
Right.
you're looking to try a yacht experience, but you're not ready quite yet to go to the Seychelles, right? You know, this is a perfect way to do it. And you get to experience, again, that destination, a yacht, but then also, again, these added sort of experiences on board, which a large ship can clearly not offer you, right? And it is much more of your own sort of, not private experience, but there's not a lot of people. So I just think that's really unique. And I think, again, going back to what people are looking for, they're looking to unplug, they're looking to reconnect, they're looking to relax, but again, maybe not with 1,000 of their best friends, right? Really have that intimacy in that space and that level of luxury that they're used to.
Absolutely. I'm just looking up. I'm going to get just a couple pictures for us, because I feel
We're going to go from cold to warm.
Yeah, there's you know, we're blending, Tiffany. You know, that's what we're doing. We're just blending the zone.
And I know it was a little impromptu, but like I said, and I know it's like, you know, breaking news on the Scenic side, right? But like I said, I saw your post and I was like, we just got to talk about this, because it's amazing, right? And I just think, again, some of the itineraries that you guys are coming out with, and I think the onboard experience is very unique. And I think too, just getting people aware of what's out there and the options that they have. And like Kayla said earlier, like, you could potentially combine some of these, right? If you're looking for one way of travel and then combining it with another, there's so many ways to do this.
There are.
So yes.
I'm
kind of putting you on the spot with your,
your
yacht images, right? That are
so many good ones. That's why I'm trying to look here to be like, what's a juicy one that I can share with some fun new images, because I think that's there's so much that's coming out here that it's like, okay, how much can we share and at what point in time? But the exciting thing is the fleet's getting newer and newer, and yachts are so fresh. On the Emerald side, the oldest yacht was built in 2022. Her sister came out in 2023, and we announced that there are 3 more coming. And I'm going to share my screen now because I have the right deck here. But it's just getting younger and younger. And the fun thing is our owner is absolutely passionate about shipbuilding. So if we're filling them, he's saying, let's keep building and expanding our horizons. So this is one that I just wanted to show you of our new baby girl that's coming into the fold in spring of 2026. And this is Emerald Kaya. So these are our Fun in the Sun yachts on the Emerald brand. And she holds 128 guests at full occupancy. You could see the aft here, kind of just what we were talking about with some of these CGI images of the marina platform and the aft, lounge space. And you can see it really feels like a below deck experience, but
Yes. And
92 crew.
did I see too, isn't there like a workout area that there's
Yes.
like folds out and there's a platform? Like, I
Yep.
mean, can we just
I
need
think
to be
I have
on
a
that
visual
right
of that, yeah, too, because this is we've added more lounge space because people really wanted to just be outside, living their best Emerald yacht life.
now. Yes.
Some selling points here of what's overnight stays and whatnot. Let me just see if I have any other visuals of that. But we do have, yes, there with the 50% increase in wellness space, there is a section in the middle of this, the lower part of the ship there that will fold out, and it's a yoga platform, and people can launch and get into the kayaks and just have some open air, gym space, which is great. But yeah.
Oh, amazing. One thing, and we obviously can keep the image up because it kind of ties into my last segment of what's new, what's next. But before we get there, I did want to talk a little bit about cultural and social impact because, particularly my audience really cares about purpose-driven travel. And you've talked a lot about that from the destination perspective, and can you talk a little bit about Scenic's perspective on sustainability, community engagement?
Yes.
Even obviously, the submersibles, there's a lot of thought that goes into when those are launched, how they're launched, noise, obviously, in that particular part. But yeah, give us a perspective.
I might actually go to this slide here just to talk about this with our two toys, since we're on that topic.
Yes.
So the two Airbuses, they're the helicopters that we have on board, were purposely built to be noise minimizing, so they don't disrupt wildlife. I've heard a lot of kind of dialogue from other folks about, oh, well, we don't want to stress out the animals by flying over them. And that is absolutely a myth. We do not do that. We are never landing or flying over penguin colonies or in any capacity getting too close to the nature, because we are members of IATO. We take that a membership very seriously, and that's the Antarctic Alliance there that allows us to travel to Antarctica. But that is very much a thread of our existence in luxury discovery expedition. So it was very thoughtful by design. And like I said, we're extremely mindful of where the wildlife is, what we're going to see. And the helicopters are really designed to give you the views of the ice and the glaciers and the mountains and the topography, so to speak. And you will see flavors of wildlife down below. I remember when I was on the helicopter, I was looking down below, obviously, of some of the sea ice, and you could see a bunch of seals lounging on the ice from way, way below. And it was not going to be anything that was going to disrupt them. Same thing with the submersible. We're never extracting anything or landing on the seafloor to disrupt any beds. It was very thoughtfully designed. The Scenic Neptune here, Scenic Neptune 2, which you'll see in the visual on the screen, that is our newest submersible design. Comfortably seats 8 guests with 1 pilot, no obstructed views, built in the United States, went through rigorous sea trials, again, for safety, but very mindful in that. But sustainability is a very important part of our brand DNA. We have a program called Cherish the Planet, which we release our annual report every year, and we're always looking to expand that. And that extends from both shoreside to even shipboard as well. So actually, I'm going to be taking part in a beach cleanup in Miami in October, just because we're always looking to do more with the environments that we have access to. And, whether it's fuel or single-use plastic elimination, which we don't have single-use plastics, we provide all guests, whether it's river or ocean, with a complimentary stainless steel water bottle for them to use on board and then take home. I mean, you're not going to have that. We really are focused on making no impact. The expedition team will say we leave only footprints, nothing else. We take nothing. You're not even like some pebbles from Antarctica. Nope. You leave it exactly where it is. We leave only footprints. This is some of these destinations are so spectacular, and they are so instrumental in the health of this planet. And we want to make sure that we constantly treasure that and don't ever leave a negative impact, but only leave people with more of an awareness of what those destinations have to offer and how meaningful they are and what we can do to help preserve them.
And one thing as you were talking, I actually just thought about that I haven't brought up in any of these conversations is, we talk a lot about, of course, right? This is so important, exactly what you said. What is the company doing to sustain their presence there? All the things that you just mentioned, because as a traveler, as a customer, you want to make sure who I'm doing business with cares about these places.
Yeah.
But it's a two-way street, right? So I think the other part that we don't talk about a lot is what that traveler then brings back with them. They don't bring anything from the place, but I think there is an awareness that people that are going to these places, when they come back, they want to talk about, right? And so, if you've never gone to these places, it's not on the forefront of people's mind, right? What's happening with obviously climate change and how to protect these destinations, how to protect the wildlife, unless you're seeing it, it's not what you're thinking about. And I think, having people travel to these places and, have the images, right, that bring that more to life, or just the stories when they come back, that two-way street, I think it's the responsibility of the traveler to be able to bring that message back to people they're talking to, because you can't just depend on the company. They're going to do everything, but how do you bring that awareness to a larger audience? And I think it's the responsibility of the traveler.
Yeah. And, the thing is, we try to leave people too with a feeling of, we don't want people to feel depressed on their vacations, right? Like they're not going to be like in lectures where, climate change, it gets to the point where it's heavy and you lose sight of like, you're out there. And at the same time, our team is extremely knowledgeable and will absolutely entertain a dialogue. And, we welcome guests, especially with these open bridge policies where they can go up and ask the bridge staff, different questions or what they've seen, or the expedition team, which is always around and on board and available. They welcome that dialogue. They love when guests have a genuine passion for sustainability and protecting wildlife and nature. And we encourage people to come forward and to always to ask their questions and really be a part of the solution. It's funny enough too, there's a responsibility that every ship has to, make sure that IATO regulations are being followed. And interestingly enough, I can share a personal testament to this whole experience. When I was sailing in Antarctica, there was a sailing yacht that we noticed around the bend, and they were not following regulations. And I guess our expedition team leader was kind of checking it out, and he's like, yeah, this is not good. And they sent in a report with the location to report that, because I think it was a private vessel that was just there. And they're like, no, this place is special. We need to protect it. So anything that presents any harm is absolutely reported, and we take that extremely seriously.
I love that. Just with your firsthand account of actually watching something like that in action, I think is awesome. So as we kind of come to the end here, I've got a few questions that I'm wondering about. And I mean, you're already doing so much, right? Like you just showed us sort of late breaking news, right? With some of the yachts that are just an image, right? That are not even out there kind of in the wild yet. But like you said, you're always thinking about innovation and what's new and what's next. So other than what you've shared, what is on the horizon for the Scenic Group, whether it's ships itineraries, other innovations, what can we expect to see?
Yes. So we have, there's some things that I can and can't, but I would say keep follow the brand and stay in touch with Tiffany, because she'll keep everybody here posted and updated with all of those very exciting updates, because they are very exciting. But what I can announce is that on our Emerald River side, our upper premium river experience, I've announced 2 new ships that are coming into the fleet. There are currently 9, there will soon to be 11. We'll have Emerald Astra join our fleet in spring of 2026, doing the Rhine, Main, and Danube itineraries. And then Emerald Lumi will be debuting a bit later, and I think end of into early 27 on the Seine River, and for Paris, Normandy beaches, Rouen, Giverny, lovely itinerary. So if you've ever considered a river cruise, which honestly, Tiffany, I think we need a whole nother segment just on river.
I know.
Into that another time, but we have that coming out. We also have our 3 new Emerald yachts, as I mentioned, Emerald Kaya, Emerald Raya, and Emerald Zara coming into the fold starting 2026 and 2027. And from the scenic side, and I mentioned that we are going to be starting with Emerald tours, land tours that are, we're going to be sharing a lot more information in the coming months surrounding those different itineraries, as well as there will be some exciting scenic announcements. You just have to wait and see. But the good news is it's not too long. So
Okay, that's good.
It's an exciting time of year to have some extra special announcements.
Yes.
I can tell you is the fleet's getting younger and the world is expanding. So if you've ever thought about doing a luxury yacht vacation, and we always say bring a couple couples, it's more fun with good people and friends. If you want to just pay one price and have everything included and have a really high touch luxury experience that's not formal, not stuffy, Scenic is a great, or Emerald is a great collection of products to look at.
I love that. Oh, that's so exciting. There's just so much to look forward to there. And I think, just the future of expedition travel, it just seems like everyone is just innovating, right? And it's like, I mean, there's only so many destinations that exist, but I think there's so many that we have yet to explore. So I think that's really the exciting part. So I will say my last question is, if you wanted the viewers to kind of walk away with one thing, what would that be? Whether it's a piece of advice, something you want them to know, whether they're thinking about their first one, or just sort of, travel in general. What's your takeaway?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. And there's so many things. I would say make the most of your time. And, our expedition team members often tell guests when they get to the Arctic or the Antarctic, and their mind is blown. There's wildlife everywhere. It's an overwhelming experience. While you're sitting in the Zodiac, I remember a team member said to our group, everyone, try your best not to have FOMO, because nature will show you what it shows you. We always segment our expedition groups into 4 different color groups: red, blue, yellow, and green. And some days you might be in the earlier group, and the next day you might get to sleep in a little bit. And it's a great balance because you kind of get to see a little bit of this and a little bit of that and take turns and rotate. And so maybe you're in the later group one morning and the first group sees a leopard seal that's circling a zodiac, and that leopard seal is really interactive and close, and people are mind blown. They've got these amazing pictures. But by 10 a.m. when it's your group's turn to go, that leopard seal is probably not going to still be hanging out to do tricks for you. But you may see a pod of humpback whales right there, or a Weddell seal come up. There's so many different things that nature has to show you. And when we change our mindset on any type of travel, I think that this is important to just keep in mind for those that are actively pursuing adventure and travel. Show up every day with an open, positive mind of saying, I'm just going to absorb and embrace whatever the day brings me, whatever nature wants to show me, and keep your eyes open and mind open to that. And I think you'll find that your experience is more positive. You will be more in touch and in tune to what you saw, what spoke to you in that moment. And, the storytelling that you'll have afterwards is a different level than, well, this person over here saw this. When you're resharing that, cool. Instead of saying, oh my God, I just polar plunged and it was an amazing experience. I felt like a unicorn coming out. And then when I thought it couldn't get any better, I looked out, I was cheering everybody on, and I saw an emperor penguin just swim by, and I saw the beautiful markings of its beak and the black and the gold, and it awakened something in my soul. It's a different story than saying somebody else saw that, or, oh, well, this group saw this, but I didn't get a chance to see it. When you focus on what you do see, it tells a different story, I think, in your own mind and to others. So come with an open mind.
Kayla, I love that advice. Let nature show you what it's going to show you, I think, and just your advice in travel, and just it's great life advice, right? And so I think that comes full circle into why people even travel, right? And this kind of travel, in any travel, quite frankly, if you allow it, changes your life and it changes who you are. And this just takes it to another level. And I think your advice is so poignant and just so on point. And I just appreciate that. I
Yeah.
just think that's lovely. Yes.
Anytime. You know, I saw a lot as a crew member, and it's funny because I used to say all the time, if people want to have a good time, they will, no matter what. I've seen some crazy scenarios on big ships where I just thought, wow, I don't know if we can recover from this one. That was a pretty big problem. And other people that had a very small issue and made it into a mountain, whereas the person with an actual issue said, you know what, it's okay. I'm on vacation. Like, life's not that bad. It's so funny to see a different adaptation to mindset and how much more you can get out of your travels. And sometimes those are the best stories, is when there are a few kind of crazy things that happen along the way that you back and laugh on or be like, oh, all right. But if you actually go with the intention of, I'm going to have the most remarkable time, no matter what, you always will. So
love that. Kayla, you are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing everything about the Scenic Group. It's just been a terrific conversation.
Yes, I so appreciate it, Tiffany. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we will talk soon. Stay tuned for all the latest and greatest, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.